Welcome to another edition of the Interview Podcast, coming to you live from the four landscape house place in Philadelphia. Did you did you see that yesterday? Where Trump was
I
supposed
do
to
not understand what was going on with that. I guess I wasn't like following everything. What's going on with the Four Seasons landscaping? I'm very confused.
I don't know. I did see they had a press conference there, I think eventually, but I think Trump tweeted at the wrong place or something. So they ended up having to do it there, is my understanding. But I don't know. It was hilarious. It's like this little hole in the wall. It's like, oh my gosh, are all the ballots hidden there? Like
Oh.
what is it? Is this a secret cover up? So anyways, Ms. Wald, we talked last week before the election. Would we have a winner? And while we do not have a formal winner yet, barring a Trump lawsuit that overturns it, Joe Biden will be the next president of the United States. That is how the media should be reporting it and how I will report it. Would you agree?
That sounds very fair
Very fair.
to me.
Okay. So we have a lot of news because elections in Russia go hand in hand. Let's talk about Russia.
That's exactly. You say elections, I totally think Russia.
That's what I think.
You know.
Vladimir Putin, is he really hanging it up? Have you confirmed that story?
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of strange because I saw that announcement from the New York Post and I was like, whoa. But nothing else has really come about, after that. So it seems like it kind of got lost in all the election kerfuffle.
Yeah, it was weird because it said that he has Parkinson's, and so you know,
Yeah, that's kind of serious.
yeah, that would be serious. So that would be interesting to see.
It's
'Cause
also, can I just add, like doing something like that would be very contrary to kind of the traditional like Soviet-esque, thing where they just kind of hide the fact and he's like ruled by some puppet masters behind the scenes as he like slowly deteriorates.
Right, right.
That's
No,
much more.
it's a weird story. You wonder if maybe it's some of the counterfactions are trying to put out some propaganda to destabilize his power or whatever. So, anyways, it will be interesting to see how that plays out. But we'll stay in Russia. Novak in charge of Moscow's OPEC ties despite promotion. It's a weird,
We're
weird way to
giving you
write
a
it.
promotion, but you still have to do the scut work.
Alexander Novak is set to remain Moscow's main representative at OPEC and provide stability during oil market volatility, even though he has been promoted to Deputy Prime Minister for Foreign Energy Minister, three industry sources said on Monday. So, how exactly is Novak going to provide stability during oil market volatility, Ms. Wald?
Um, well, clearly, and this is kind of amusing because if you look at the picture attached to the article,
Mm-hmm.
it's showing Novak wearing a mask, pulling it down below his nose, next to another woman
She's got the
wearing a
Ryan Ray
mask
mask on,
below her
down,
chin.
down by the chin.
Yeah, hers is like even below her chin. It's not even doing anything for her chin. At a Victory Day parade in Red Square in Moscow on June 24th, which I think may have been before he apparently was diagnosed with coronavirus. But anyway, I think he'll continue to provide the same kind of solid presence as is shown in this incredibly illuminating photo of how seriously the Russians care about whether they're photographed with masks. Um, what's interesting is I think you got to keep Novak involved in the OPEC Plus because especially now that Folly is gone, he's kind of like he's one, he was one of the architects of the original OPEC Plus deal, and I think that it would be very tumultuous if he were to step out, but also because it's still really the big players are Russia and Saudi Arabia, and if there's a disagreement, and what's interesting is so today the ADIPEC is having its annual conference, and the Saudi energy minister went out and said, oh well, there's pretty good chance we're going to tweak the OPEC plus deal, a lot more than so-called analysts think it'll be tweaked, which means to most people, oh, they're going to have more cuts. And then you have Novak coming on in the same conference and saying, "Oh, I don't expect oil demand to see any problems. He doesn't expect oil demand to peak for at least the next 10 to 15 years, though it may be a year or two before we get back to the 100 million barrel per day consumption that we had." And I think those are kind of two very different takes on the oil market. One is like poking at the analysts and poking the bear and looking ahead to like what's going to happen in 2 weeks, and the other one is saying here's the big picture. And I think Novak comes across as much more kind of stable presence, and they need that in OPEC.
Well, so we obviously had some breaking news this morning about a vaccine. I don't know if you saw this as well. Russia's Sputnik V vaccine is more than 90% effective, so therefore it will be better than the Pfizer one.
Was this reported by Sputnik News?
This is Delta One, Walter Bloomberg on Twitter reporting from the health minister representative says.
You're gonna fly to Russia to get the greater than 90% effective vaccine from the Russians?
91% vaccine.
Yeah.
So how will this play into? I think barring some massive backpedaling here, we're on path for a vaccine in 2021. Obviously, it'll take forever for everyone to get it. But we got the OPEC meeting here in just 20 days, right? Something like that.
So they're having their like JMMC kind of technical meeting, I think on the November 17th, and then OPEC meets November 30th, and OPEC Plus is supposed to meet December 1st. Everything I know says this is a virtual meeting, considering that like the country of Austria is like totally locked down.
Right. So, but how will this be a big topic of conversation for OPEC? I mean, because the vaccine, if you look at, and I haven't seen what they're currently saying. I know Trump was talking about using the military to distribute the vaccine, but if you look at globally, I think it takes. I want to say we did some on the War Room a long time ago on this. It's like 3 years or 4 years to distribute it globally to everyone, and that's assuming you need it one time. So do you think? Well, I mean, historically, how will OPEC treat news like this? Will they be like, okay, hey, yes, cool, we'll have to wait and see, or could this really impact some of their talking points and policy decisions at the end of this month?
No, I think that's a really good question because mostly because so first of all, OPEC, I think everyone understands that like Q4 is going to suck, like really suck in terms of oil demand. Look, I mean, Europe is basically on lockdown through December, and there are various states in the United States that are either doing lockdowns or these weird curfews because apparently coronavirus goes to sleep at night or during the day. They only coronavirus goes to sleep during the day because you can only catch it between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. at night.
Well, and I learned something this weekend also. If you're out celebrating a Joe Biden victory, you cannot get it. But if you're one of the Notre Dame students who stormed the field, you might die.
Yes.
And so at football games, it's very present. At political Joe Biden rallies, especially, it basically is non-existent. So it's let me tell you something. This might be the most bigoted virus I've ever seen in my life.
Wow. If only viruses had brains. Actually, they don't even have DNA. They have RNA. They're not even complex enough to have DNA, and yet they know which is the right side. It was interesting. We were watching. Sorry to digress, but we were watching this football game, a college football game this weekend, and the quarterback is wearing one of those neck gaiter things around his neck while he's playing. And my husband says he's like, that is really terrifying because someone could come up behind him, grab on his neck gaiter, and crush his larynx. That is an actual thing that could happen to this quarterback, as opposed to like the idea that he might somehow like that this thing will somehow protect him from getting or giving a virus that probably won't have much effect on any of the other players on the field.
Well, Ellen, you got to understand here. Let me help you out. I know you've got a PhD, but let me help you out here.
I know.
Despite the fact that he's probably a healthy young man with a 99.97% chance of surviving COVID-19, that is the most important thing in his life right now. So his larynx, his throat, all of that is secondary because that 0.03% chance that he might die is
Right.
serious. And so I don't think you are
Forget the
pushing.
250-pound, linebacker coming at him.
Yeah, no,
That is not a threat.
that's not threat. No, not
Okay, good.
not threat.
Okay,
Not
I'm clear.
dehydration. Not the 2 a days. Nothing. So no.
Okay.
Um,
Okay, I'm
you,
clear now. Thank you.
well, it's the least we could do. You did mention the lockdowns. We talked about this last week or 2 weeks ago. Some analysts is like, oh, the lockdowns aren't going to infect demand, and we're like, let's wait and see what happens there. So now we have the IEA sees new European lockdowns denting oil demand outlook. I would say it's going to actually dement.
It's actually going to dent demand.
Demand, practically speaking. And so the lockdowns, as you mentioned, do seem to be getting, I don't know what the right word is, more stringent, more steady, more, they're not going away. And so they have to impact more.
If we have any listeners from Australia or New Zealand, maybe they can, cue us in. But so last night, this woman named Naomi Wolf, that's her name. The only reason I really know about her is because she apparently wrote this book about like gay people in Europe at the certain time, and she thought that they were all getting killed. And she totally misread this historical document that didn't mean that.
Oh,
And she got totally embarrassed on the air. Okay.
It was like the opposite of what she was saying.
Right. Exactly.
And
she got completely embarrassed by this radio
host. That was the best interview ever.
Yeah.
It's like, you do understand that's not what that word means in that context.
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, well, you're like, no. That was great. I forgot about
which is why you should hire your friendly neighborhood historian if you have a question. Just saying. We actually do have a purpose, understanding historical context and reading historical documents. So, anyway. So apparently she tweeted last night that she didn't know that Joe Biden is pro-lockdown. And if she had, she wouldn't have voted for him. And I was like,
okay, hold on.
Where have you been?
Okay.
But
I'm sorry.
Ryan is speechless.
Yes.
Audience members. Ryan is actually speechless.
You do not deserve a right to vote if you did not know that. I'm sorry. Your vote should be taken from you for at least 2 or 3 presidential elections. If you did not know that Joe Biden, this isn't like.
It's not like saying what is Joe Biden's ideas about monetary policy.
Or even okay, is he going to raise the tariffs on China by a few percent or small? I can understand that, maybe some foreign policy issue that you're not really in tune with because foreign policy doesn't impact you. But to not know that he is for a national mask mandate, despite the fact lockdowns that they have repeated in commercial multiple times.
Yeah.
You should lose your life.
Yeah. So anyway, but what was interesting was she's a big figure. She's written a lot of books. She worked with Clintons and stuff like that. So she got a lot of responses. And the number of people from Australia who were writing, they were like, we just got off a really harsh lockdown starting July and it's worked 10 days, no cases. This, it's tough, but you can do it. We can do this. Is the right policy. The number of people who were from Australia, this was totally the right thing to do. You have to do this. Basically saying suck it up because we appreciate it, even though it was really harsh. I guess it was their winter and our because July for us is summer, but there it's winter. But whatever, and I was like, wow, how many people do people really want lockdowns? I mean,
New Zealand reelected that their the lady prime minister, I can't remember her name. They reelected her. And so
they really think it was. I don't know. I'm just curious. So I'm wondering, it almost there was nobody in everyone responding was an Australian or New Zealander saying, you got to suck it up because this is what you have to do to get 0 cases. But don't they realize that they're going to, it's going to happen again?
It's going to happen again. Yeah. That's why I put in the news the other day. That's why New Zealand has declared victory twice over the virus.
Twice. Yes.
First, if they had,
it's like the war to win. It was like World War I was the war to end all wars, and then we had World War II.
Then World War II. Yeah. So Dr. Foreman has pointed out multiple times that we've printed, 15, 20 trillion dollars, whatever it is. I can't remember what the number is. I think people don't realize what's going on because of that. So it's kind of hard to understand, what actually is going on and how the potential problems, and I've said that I'm on the record. If we come out of this thing in a V-shaped recovery and by mid 2021, we're like, hey, we're cooking. There are a lot of questions about why people are working for a living. because
Yeah.
we have really so. I don't know how we don't have some economic pain when that happens. I don't know, but I think it's still kind of kind of.
I think we do. I don't think it's being well documented. I mean, if there are sometimes there are stories about like the lines at food banks.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think it's mostly affecting not so much the professional class, or the
Right.
professional class has not yet been so affected. I think that will come because this is a bottom up
Mhm, mhm,
issue, as
mhm,
opposed to, say, the last recession, which was a top down, caused by the
mhm,
financial sector, and it kind of showed this is like a
mhm,
bottom up thing. But yeah, I mean, look, think about, okay, all the small businesses that are closing, all the restaurants are all this stuff
mhm,
is closing, 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 closing. Then like they're those people were customers of others. They were customers of accountants and marketing things, and they bought ads at radio.
mhm,
All of that is going to eventually come
mhm.
home to roost. So apparently, unless we can apparently spend our way out of it, or spend our way long enough before new businesses can get started up. Although, given all the intense regulation in this country, unless we do something to get rid of the regulations or to streamline the regulatory process to starting a new business, I'm not sure that we can sustain the spending until people start new businesses.
Yeah,
But
if you look at sports, because I think that's always interesting. There was a lot of talk about the NBA and what they're going to do, and the reality is, they couldn't afford to not do less than 72 games this year. And they didn't want to move it back because of the Olympics, and so they had to go ahead and say, okay, we're going to do this, and this is going to be our schedule. And so the players weren't very happy, and but people kind of presume that businesses sit around with just stacks and stacks and stacks of cash, and they're just ready to roll around.
okay, if anyone thinks that, then they need to go and like start a business,
Mhm.
because it's not good. Like, you're not running your business right if you're keeping stocks of cash around. Like, you should be. You should either be reinvesting it in your business to grow, or like you're doing like you shouldn't be sitting on tons of cash. Don't be Apple.
Right.
Like, that's not a good thing.
Yeah, and Apple is kind of a unique company. But the ones that do sit around and have cash, when the downtime comes, they deploy that capital then to go buy other businesses. So even
Yeah.
they become cash strapped. So I think that's kind of a misnomer. But anyway, so oil demand is down.
Yeah.
The lockdowns are
In Europe.
coming.
Yeah.
And I saw Fauci today was like it's gonna be a dark winter. It's like, oh good.
Dark winter. You mean because like, isn't it like this winter will not be any darker than normal? I mean, unless Fauci can like move the sun. Can he stop the sun in its tracks?
Okay, so let's go to CNBC. Asia Pacific stocks jump as investors react to Biden's presidential election win. Oil prices surge.
Yeah, can we talk about why oil prices actually surged?
Why did they actually surge, Miss Wald?
Yeah, that was the vaccine news. Thank you very much. I mean, well, I don't know. I mean, since they were higher in Asian trading hour. Okay,
Well,
so Brent crude futures were up to 40, and U.S. crude jumped to 38, but then it jumped even more. Like, U.S. is are we still over 40?
WTI is at
Yeah.
40, Brent's at 42.
So that's a big jump.
Mm,
But okay, here's the question.
the
Okay,
meme
that's
was
that's the price for the contract that ends for this month, right? That contract ends soon,
yeah, and I'm trying to see
right?
right. Yeah, well, yeah.
Why are they pushing it up? It's not going to end. It's not going to do anything for them. We're still going to have really low oil demand for the next like 2 months. I mean, OPEC, any decisions that OPEC makes now are not going to affect anything until January. No one's getting a vaccine. Like, I don't know. So this
Right.
is all just headline jumping, whatever, because it's not actually
Well, if you look,
going to.
yeah, if you look at the, sorry, I was muted. If you look at the price, I'm just kind of go back for the last week. So going back to November 3rd is kind of about the farthest back I can go on this little chart here. It was at 36. And then the day after the election, so on Wednesday, it dropped down to 37.49. Then it kind of, it went up to 39. I think it may cross 40 there once. Again, this chart's not very good. And then it was 37 going into the weekend. And then, as you say, it opened up last night 37 and, went up to 38, then came back down to 37. And then this morning, boom, it shoots up to 40 plus 40. Well, the vaccine is the most plausible reason that we have that. But to me, there's no. It's just a market reaction. It's not. There's not actual fundamentals that support that this is what's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean,
um,
that's what I kind of figured. I mean, because it's not even gonna happen now. I mean, you can. I mean, I don't even know how you would. I mean, I went on a rant about like forecasting and how horrible these models are, but can you? I mean, I guess I would assume if you're a good modeler, you've got like vaccine scenario in there, and you could just switch to your like we have a vaccine scenario and increase your demand. But how much is that? I don't think that this news really changes a lot of the calculus in terms of like how and when people will feel ready to travel, when governments will relax restrictions enough so that people will find that it's not such a pain in the ass to travel.
yeah. So I think we're kind of torn. So let's just presume that the vaccine is going to be a go. It's going to come out Q1. Um, you know, let's just be honest. If Biden proceeds with the messaging that he had before the vaccine, which was mask mandates, lockdowns, and all this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
if he proceeds that way, the vaccine as it gets here, they're going to give it, I'd imagine, to the frontline workers first, okay, which is a very
Mm-hmm.
small percentage of the population. And then they're going to start giving it to whoever else. I don't know how they're going to determine that. But it's going to take
Well,
a
I think it'll probably be given to at-risk people,
okay, yeah,
right?
yeah. So
Elderly people, whatever.
but no matter who those first groups are, those are going to be small percentage of the population, right? So doctors
Yeah.
and nurses, very small percentage. At risk people, very small percentage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you go from high risk to low risk, so it takes a long time just to kind of you know make its way through the populace. And then the other thing is, this is just for America. So what are they going to do for travel? Are they going to allow international travel?
Yeah.
And so, how does that work? And what will these European nations do? Will they allow Americans who aren't vaccinated to come over and vice versa? Because that could be something that really hampers international travel. If you get to the point saying, well, unless you have a vaccine, you can't come to our country. Well, it could take a long time before you're leaving the U.S. because you're not be eligible to get
Yeah.
one until the end of
Yeah.
next year, the year after. So I think there's a lot of unanswered questions about how the
Yeah.
government's going to do it. Now, the opposite is the government's going to say, well, people are getting vaccinated, so it's not a big deal anymore. Um, and so they kind of open things up.
Whatever.
And yeah, right. But I haven't seen Pfizer's all their announcements this morning. But how long is this vaccine supposed to be effective for? Have you seen that date at that time period?
I haven't seen it from them, but I think I remember it like just like a year, maybe. I
Is it a
don't
year?
know.
Okay, is it going to
I
be a
don't
year?
know. I don't know. I don't know. It's a good
Because
question.
yeah, because if it's only 4 months, then
Yeah.
by the
By
time
the time.
the first people get vaccinated, the phase two people wouldn't have even gotten it yet. So
Yeah.
I think we're a long way to go before we actually know what the
Yeah.
vaccine
I
is
mean,
going to do.
I think it's getting better in terms of international travel. I was just looking up in terms of like traveling to say like the UAE, and I think it's more like if you have a piece of paper showing that you got a negative test in within a certain number of days, then like you can come and I don't think that you have to
Okay.
quarantine.
So I would agree that that's how they're doing it now, but in an effort to make sure everyone gets vaccinated, they might change the policy that you have to get vaccinated. Like when you used to go, if you go to Africa, you gotta get like I don't know,
Malaria
malaria and
or
all these other
malaria
shots.
pills,
Yeah,
yeah,
well,
and
but
like
then
all those weird like
yeah,
intestinal things.
yeah, you have to get these shots to go.
Yeah.
I wonder if they might switch to that to ensure that people get vaccinated at some point.
But then wouldn't the airlines like revolt because unless they can like make it unless it's readily available, how can you require it?
Well, the airlines are hoping to get a bailout, so I think that they'll be, I mean,
They don't care.
yeah, I'll say this: the people, this is an aside, the people who are saying that the flights are full, you need to realize what you're saying. The flights are full, and they have what 50% less flights.
Yeah, because there's
So,
like one flight.
so if the flights are full, thank God. Otherwise, no one would be flying, like because there's
Yeah.
no one there. I went to Reagan the other day. There
Mhm.
was no one in line. It was what on Thursday after the election, Thursday after the presidential election, and there was no line to get through
Well,
security. So you've flown through Reagan, I'm sure. Is it usually pretty bad?
yeah. Yeah, it's pretty dense.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah, literally no line. It's insane. So okay, let's come back to the states. Oil operators get ducks in a row, adding fracking crews to boost output. this is something that we talked about way back in 2019, that we had like
Yeah.
6 months worth of production ready to go. And this is not the news that folks that are working in the oil patch want to hear, because it's a very small, you
Yeah.
percentage of the workforce that would work on this. The pipeline.
Okay, but sorry to interrupt you, but here's the thing. Okay, this is a question I have for you. So, according to this article and according to Enervus, they claim that in October, operators were burning through ducts at a rate of about 200 a month.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they did add 1,200 ducks in May,
Mm-hmm.
but 200 a month. So I posted this on Twitter, and somebody wrote back and said, actually, like I think it's closer to 300 a month.
Mm.
So when do we use up all the ducks? And does that mean we get to drill more soon? Maybe it's not so bad. I don't know. Especially
So
if Brent, if WTI stays slightly above 40.
I had this discussion with someone a while back, and kind of ties in this duck thing. So let's just say that there are. What does this article say? There's 7,000 ducks. Is that what it says? Right article here. Yeah. The shale regions. So there's 7,600 ducks U.S. Right. Um, okay. So let's just use that number. Well, that's not really the right number. But anyways, well, hold on. I can look up the duck number for the Permian. Yeah, ducks. So according to the EIA, there are 2,100 ducks in the Permian. So let's just say 2,200. It's 2,198.
Okay.
So there's 2,200 ducks in the Permian. So as the price kind of comes back up, when these producers want to, put oil on the market, you would think the first thing they're going to do is go to their ducks. It's the cheapest way to get oil online. Um, but that's not necessarily always the case, because they might have a lease that they're trying to hold, so they want to go drill that. So they kind of have some balance here. But what happens if we get to a spot to where the ducks, as you're talking about here, we get to this time next year, and we're still at 2,200 ducks? Does that mean that the ducks aren't really that viable?
Hmm. Then they're sitting ducks.
The city.
Sorry. I couldn't resist.
No, but
Yeah, maybe it means that the ducks are duds.
and I'm not saying they're all that viable. Obviously, I think there's probably a good portion of them is, but I would imagine that the banks are going to tell the producers that you have to put these ducks online first, because it's cheaper. So if you want money, put those online. Um, but if they come back and the results of some of those ducks aren't that good, because some of these ducks were drilled in a high price environment where they weren't necessarily concerned about you know being as strategic as they had to. So I'm just curious, if we'll see the ducks really go down to, yeah. So we're at 2,100 and oh, hold on, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Strike that. The number's wrong. I'm looking at the wrong thing. We're at 3,500 ducks for the Permian.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's a lot more ducks.
a lot more ducks. We added a whole gaggle of geese as well. So we're only down 21 ducks between August and September. We're down 77 overall. So 3,500 ducks. We have to go down quite a bit, right? I mean, we have to go down 1,000,
Yeah.
2,000 ducks as we go into next year.
Yeah.
And if we don't, though, if we don't, I guess my question is this: if we don't go down, does that hurt E&P companies' ability to get funding? Because why are these ducks coming online? That would be the most natural question to ask. This is the cheapest way to get the old market right now.
Mm. That's interesting. I don't know. It's a very good question.
Well, I guess we'll see as it progresses. But yeah, I don't know. The ducks are always fascinating. I know if you look at, they don't even list the ducks here on for the Barnett, but you used to have ducks for the Barnett, and those are never getting drilled again. Like, they've been around, they've been on the pond for ages as it is.
Well, if oil ever gets to 80.
Well, the Barnett's gas, so
Oh,
gas,
yeah, sorry.
yeah, it had to get way back up.
Forget that.
Okay, let's see here. LA Times. Is this the LA Times' first appearance on the show?
Probably, but it's actually an article from Bloomberg. So at this point,
Okay. Yeah, I see it now. Yeah. Biden win
yeah.
may curb U.S. drilling, supercharged renewables. Okay.
All right.
This has been the question that we've we've debated for months and months and months. Let me just ask you this: in all seriousness, does the Joe Biden victory, especially winning Pennsylvania, mean that the oil and gas industry really has a lot of work to do? I don't think it's over the 4 years, but over the next 2 years to make sure it can preserve its spot in the electorate.
Personally, I don't think that I don't personally I don't think that I think that people really do believe in the oil. People really do want the oil and gas industry. The vast majority of people in this country
Hmm.
do. Um, I don't think that like I mean, their public opinion issues are. I don't think that they're necessarily related to the fact that I mean, look, I went to the gas to get gas. It was like $1.89 a gallon.
Hmm. Hmm.
People want that. I mean, they see that as a positive thing. Not that it's a positive thing for the industry necessarily, um, but I think that I mean, I think that they've already been preparing for this. I mean, if you look at a lot of the issues in terms of like refining, and a lot of these big companies are either closing refineries that were kind of marginal or shifting them to produce like biofuels, which is not going to make them a lot of money. It's just going to give them like, you know, this whole like carbon neutral thing and net zero is really just a way of saying, are you doing enough in terms of offsets?
Hmm. Hmm.
So having a refinery that produces biofuels gives you points to check off in your like good green column to offset the refinery producing gasoline that's maybe making you more money, or at least you hope will make you more money in the future, even though it's not today because everything sucks because of corona.
Hmm.
So that's where I see the calculus. I mean, like I don't think that you're going to get tons more people going out and buying electric vehicles, even if they do try to give more incentives, because they're still so expensive and people aren't people don't see them as that useful. People don't have the money for it if it's a big recession. I mean, what are they going to do? And a new stimulus package is going to be like everyone gets $500 credit for buying an electric vehicle. Well, that does nothing.
Well, Biden said that he's going to convert the federal fleet to electric vehicles.
The federal fleet is going to end up getting stuck. I've talked to several people who like had government jobs before and had to use EVs, and they're like the most rabid anti-EV people you will ever talk to.
Yeah.
Like literally, I've never met someone who was so angry about it. Like I couldn't get anywhere. I constantly had to stop. Like I could see them doing flex fuel
Yeah. Yeah.
or
I really think this is a 2 year window here. I think, the Republicans, if they're smart, they will focus on the next 2 years, trying to gain back the House and expand their Senate lead, and then roll into 2024 and to try to reclaim the presidency. Um, I don't care who's the president for the next 2 years. I think that you're going to find some economic turmoil regardless, just because of what we've done. So, winning the midterms should be the Republicans' goal right now. And the most that Biden's going to be able to do is to undo the executive orders that Trump did. I think that's which is why we shouldn't have executive orders, because they're practically useless. So,
yeah.
and I'm not saying that's not a minor thing, but those can be done right back. So I think it's a kind of a 2 year window, to be honest with you, that the next 2 years Biden's not running again. So after the midterms, you'll start talking about 2024, and whoever's going to shape up for the Democrats, whether it's Kamala or whoever else. So, um, messaging and regulation is really, can you just kind of stall stuff for 2 years, and of course hope to get more votes in the House and the Senate, and then to move things on down the road. That's kind of my take on. Now, if he wants to do the federal fleet and change that to EVs and stuff like that, that's going to take. I
Tow
mean,
trucks.
tow trucks. Well, I mean,
Start your engines.
well, I mean,
Well,
okay,
you can get the EV, you can get the vehicles quickly, but
right, but you got
you can't get the infrastructure, you can't get the charging stations, you
right.
can't get them to work. A lot of people say the issue isn't that they can't find a charging station, it's that there are like, four stations, but only one of them charges and it charges much slower than it's supposed to.
Right. So, yeah, I think a lot of stalling is what the Republicans should be trying to do, but some of that stuff is not going to happen anytime soon. But Anyways, let's go on to one more Biden commentary. 70,000 jobs are riding on Biden's plan for oil and gas. 70,000 jobs.
Hmm.
As many as 70,000 Louisiana jobs are riding on the president elect Joe Biden's plan for oil and gas. Some changes he has proposed could eventually mean layoffs at plants in the area. In Louisiana, 70,000 is a lot of folk.
Yeah, that's why I thought this was an interesting piece because it kind of looks like it drills down into a much more like specific, how does this hurt, deal with people's lives? I mean, this guy said that I think people have a legitimate right to be concerned with this green wave that is coming in. We saw under the Obama administration the rules and regulations that come into play that President Trump eliminated very quickly, I think will be back in place. So that's interesting because it says to me that like at least they know what's coming. A
Right.
lot of the issues for businesses when it comes to regulatory state is what exactly is happening, like they don't there's uncertainty. If it's just going to be the same stuff as it was 4 years ago, then I think they have a general sense of like what it's going to be. On the other hand, it could, if they want to do more radical stuff, then I think that would take more legislation and more time. So that kind of speaks to your point. Before that, I mean, the thing that I was interested what I was wondering is, you know are we seeing big gains in the stocks of these like solar panel producing companies,
Mhm.
battery research like are we seeing their stock prices go up? Because if there's a kind of Obama-esque um Obama-esque a stimulus package where he provided all of this support, for these companies, I think it's important for people to remember that that doesn't mean that the company will do well. Yeah, getting federal money is great for your company because it shore up your stock price, whatever. But there were companies that got federal grants that went under quickly, like
Mhm.
A123 Battery and
Right.
Fisker and a bunch of other ones. And so just because the government is throwing money at it doesn't mean that the company is still going to do well. So I would say like to me it says, you want to pick the winner, and the federal government like picking a winner is a sure way for you to get a winner, but even then not yet. Like still can't.
Well, and not to bring Hunter Biden into it, but will they go and get batteries from China? And in all seriousness, China has focused extensively
Then they
on.
can explode.
But Tesla. We talked about the other day. Tesla's struggling to sell their EVs and
Yeah.
their Teslas in China. And that's because China. We were there. They're talking about they are putting the the full force of the CCP behind it to get these EV batteries going. So will we outsource some of this I don't know, technology labor, whatever the word is I'm looking for here, to bring in the Chinese batteries or the Chinese cars or stuff like that to help make it more affordable and to kind of offset some of these costs and these issues? That's kind of, I think, on the outside. Do you have a read on what Biden's policies might be as far as importing foreign made green technology? Because solar panels, wind turbines, all China has that for days.
You who knows? No idea. In his commercials, he was like, American made. We're going to make it in America. We're only going to buy American made. Well, come on. Just because someone says that in a commercial does not mean that that's actually what the government's doing.
Really,
Really? I know.
I'm stunned. How dare you? How
I
dare you?
know.
Okay.
How dare you lie in your commercial?
Okay. All right. Final. Well, no, we got one more at this one. Okay. This is from Forbes. This is from an Ellen R. Wald, who is a senior contributor. A warning from the United Kingdom: renewable energy may not suffice. Bum bum bum. So, Miss Wald, what is going on with our friends in the UK? Are you saying that their renewables are struggling to meet their demand even during
Hmm.
COVID lockdowns?
Hmm. Yeah, so this was an interesting issue. It didn't end up, I don't think it ended up becoming an issue. It wasn't like, in the Northeast during that really bad cold snap a couple of years ago. But basically, the National Grid, which is the UK's like power generating board, or they regulate it or they control it, issued a warning because apparently a mass of both somewhat cold and also very calm air had settled over the island, And it meant that the wind farms, both offshore and onshore wind farms that the UK has, were producing a lot less electricity. I think it was so they're supposed to produce 16.9 on average. They produce 16.9 gigawatts of energy, but they were only expected to generate 2.5 gigawatts of energy at times on Wednesday. Plus, because of system constraints, they couldn't use 1.2 gigawatts of that. So that's like basically takes out all of their wind power. And so they were expecting a shortfall of like 740 megawatts of energy. And so they were basically like, but also because there were other power plants that were offline for repairs and things like that. And so they were looking to fire up old coal power plants to meet any potential gaps.
How
And
dare they? Hold
I
on.
know.
Hold on. Are they wanting to? Are they wanting the polar bears to die?
Uh-huh. I
Could you
know. After they like close their last coal mine too.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's very ironic. And I just think that it brings up this issue of, yeah, this is, first of all, you rely on these things, then you got to be aware that they're going to fail sometimes. But it's not just wind and solar. You have this problem with hydroelectric too. Remember way back in uh, 2016, maybe? I don't remember exactly, but Venezuela was going through a really big drought and they had
Mm.
moved to basically like all hydro and they just weren't generating enough electricity. And everyone's like, how can they have blackouts in Venezuela when they have so much oil? And you explain, well, they wanted to export their oil, so they shifted to hydro plants, which sounds great for
Mhm.
the environment, except it sucks when you have a big drought.
Yeah. When I was in
So,
Zambia, well, I don't think did I know you when I was in Zambia? Maybe right
when
before
we
I
were
had
in
you, maybe.
Zambia,
It it must have been right before I started the Global Introduce podcast. It's probably been
uh,
it's okay. So it predate that. Anyways, I was down there and they had a big hydro plant and they're like, yeah, this has been really good for us, except for now we're in a massive drought and yeah, we need rain. And so it's one of those things. It's like, hey, it works great when the environment works great. So it's kind of built on this model of it's got to have so much rain, but the hydro stuff and the wind stuff and the solar stuff, it all has everything has a weakness. And why did we not just openly admit that everything has a weakness?
not just that, but to me, it also points to the real issue that comes along with vilifying natural gas. Because if they had shifted more towards natural gas as opposed to coal, then maybe they wouldn't have to fire up the coal-fired power plants. They'd have natural gas to rely on, which, while not as clean as wind power,
Um,
is much better than solar. And so I think that it highlights the issues with managing this kind of stuff, and also the fact that you can't necessarily predict when the wind is not going to blow. You
Very
can't
true
predict
statement.
when. I mean, you can
Very true
predict when
statement.
you can predict when the sun's not going to shine. Like, okay, you know when it's going to be nighttime.
Mhm.
But like the wind is a much more fickle force. You can quote me on that. A fickle force. And
Headline: The wind is a
so
fickle force.
it just speaks to like you rush so fast into this, and you just have to remember that like you can't give up on everything before, or you're going to end up with these having, I mean, maybe they're okay, maybe they're like, yeah, whatever, it's one day, so what if we have to burn some coal?
Mhm.
But one day could turn into 3 days, can turn into a week, can turn into a month, especially as electricity use grows. If everyone's charging their electric vehicle, then you're going to have a lot more, there's a lot more constraints on the system. And, so I just think you really like vilifying natural gas like this and fossil fuels can lead to these kinds of things.
Well, and I was looking for this earlier. I cannot find it. I got this book. I think I know I think it was you and DRW. I recommended to you on Twitter the other day. Oh gosh, I can't find it. And it's a book about numbers, forecasting, modeling. And one of the things the guy does is he talks about why Disneyland or Disney World rather cannot keep the line short.
Mm.
Okay, and so he goes through and he talked about all the money that Disney World has put in there to try to keep the lines moving, and but they can't do it. If you go, you just can't. There's long lines, and it's interesting read, because it's not, that's the whole book's on that. That's just one chapter. It's an interesting read on, why they struggle. So if you think about Disney World, which is a contained place with a finite amount of people that can come in on a daily basis, I'm assuming they know how many tickets they're going to sell. Plus, they have a pretty good average of how many people are going to come into the park based upon the day. They have all this historical data, right? And they still can't get the lines to work. Okay, and they've tried all kinds of stuff. When you introduce EV charging into the grid, you would have that kind of base load problem, because now people are going to charge at different times. They're going to charge more regularly, less, people charge in the morning. They're going to stop here. Those are the types of variables that are actually extremely hard to get your head around. And I don't think that when we talk about adding all these EVs to the grid, because that's what you're essentially doing, that we really have any concept, if everyone went to an EV today, what it would do to base load capacity. And so, I think it's a recipe for disaster, especially when you can't keep your current grid up and going as it is now.
Exactly.
Let me see. I actually got the guy coming on the War Room podcast this week. I'm trying to find his book. I can't find it. It's like Inside the Numbers or Behind the Numbers or something. I'll find it. Make sure we put it in the show notes. But it talks about this.
Oh, I think you sent me a link to that book, actually.
Yeah.
I might be
Okay.
able to put it in the show notes.
Yeah, it's it's something that folks should read just to understand, because like they did one on the traffic problems in Minnesota maybe, and why they couldn't get the traffic down, and they try all this stuff they tried. And anyways, it's just fascinating to look at,
Cool.
stuff like that.
I have a very serious question for you.
Oh boy.
Okay. Incognito or McPlant? Which one?
Starve. Starve.
I think that the meat substitute market is just exploding here. I mean, like, how do you know what to choose from? Do you go with Morningstar's Incognito? Are you a Beyond Meat person, or and then there's another one, the name I can't remember? Or like, do we just wait it out for McPlant because
Plant.
McDonald's just clearly knows what's going on here?
I got a feeling that one day we're gonna wake up and like McDonald's is gonna come out. Here it is. Numbers rule your world. There it is. By anyways, he will be on the War Room podcast. It's at the War Room this week. Anyways, it's a great book. Everyone should go read it. Just kind of get your head around some of this stuff, especially talk about modeling. That's not the purpose of the book, but he does do some of that stuff. I think we're gonna wake up one day and like you're gonna have the McDonald's CEO that's not sleeping with all of his secretaries. He's gonna come out and be like, "Ladies and gentlemen, I just want you to know that for the past 2 years we've been using 100% vegan beef, and we're all like
all
so,
our hamburgers. You had no idea. Oh my god, that would be the scandal of like the century. Like, very seriously.
He would get, or she would get, the Nobel Peace Prize though.
Uh-huh.
Like all the vegans and the vegetarians, they would be like, "Yes, here we go, PETA." They would get the Nobel Peace Prize. I'm telling you,
Yeah.
I fully expect that to happen. Like they're gonna do
Forget
something.
the election. Forget Corona. That would actually be the scandal.
Okay, Miss Wald, we're
I
back to.
thought we'd end that on a high note.
That's wonderful. No, the McPlant. I saw that. I about threw up thinking about it. Where will you be this week?
I
Oh,
am
real quick. I listened to
Yeah.
you and DRW on Hot Take of the Day podcast. Very good. Really enjoyed that. That was a great discussion. So folks need to go listen to that as well. That was very good.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. I'm sorry. I felt like I was cheating on our podcast a little.
No. It's lovely. It's lovely. I listened to that while I was walking around DC the other day, and I tuned into it. No, it was good. And I'm trying to think. There was something y'all were talking about, the Saudi reserves and all that stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. With that was he raised that really good point about Twilight in the desert and what Saudi's lying about their reserves and what's going on there.
Yeah. So, anyways, folks need to go check that
Just
out.
like nobody seems to care about it anymore, but they
No,
will.
no. Well,
Just like we all care about whether we're going to be eating a McPlant burger or an actual Big Mac.
okay. So you were
Pretty soon they're going
there.
to tell me the fries are made out of cauliflower.
Oh gosh.
Sorry.
Good job.
All right. Enough.
Please,
I'm going to be on investing.com and Forbes this week.
Okay.
That's it for now.
That's it for now. And you'll be on Twitter as always.
Yes.
The show webinar is now free. And I might, if I can remember to do that, I will put the audio up on this podcast feed. And so folks can just listen to it right there. But I will link to the YouTube link in the show notes. And then inside the war room, I'll be writing about the election. Of course, I'm gonna get his name wrong. I think it's Kaiser Fung on Numbers Rule Your World. I can't. It's a book that I really enjoyed. Maybe folks will enjoy it as well. And then we'll be back next week, right? Yeah, we're back until further notice. Miss Wald, it was lovely to
Yeah.
be back, and we have
We
nothing to look
shall
forward to
see
now.
what next week brings.
Yeah, I mean,
Who knows?
for so long we were like, okay, election, election, election. Now it's like, okay, well,
I know. What's there to talk about?
what's there talking about now next week? So,
Yeah. Could we
oh,
get another election?
well, there will be one in Georgia, I think. Oh, Dr. Foreman will probably be on next week. So,
Okay, that's good. I'd like to take a look at that. I think if things to look for this week, I think people should look at the consumption numbers, driving numbers, mobility, because Gas Buddy Guy posted yesterday that it really looked like there were some serious, significant declines in mobility last week in terms of gasoline usage. It's like really like significant declines, and I think that the question is that just kind of pre-election jitters, or is that the new trend going forward?
okay. All right, listeners, we will be back next week.